Let's give it up for Cheryl.
We've been kind of joined at the hip since about February, so this is kind of fitting. Anyway, Bob Jacquart, I know Bob from Ironwood, Michigan, because I actually grew up in Ironwood, Michigan. And one of my dear friends, my husband and I, actually worked for Bob. Dennis McCrae is one of his division managers, and one of the handful of employees that first started with him way back in the day when I was a waitress at Big Boy, and he doesn't remember me, so I was not a very good waitress because he can't even remember that. I used to come in and I'd wait on him, and they'd redo the fabric of the booth. And he says, oh yeah, that was one of my first things that I did with my business. And I remember him back from that day. And of course, have heard about his company from our friend Dennis over the years, and it's really grown. And all the divisions and things that he does is just a great, awesome business for the Ironwood area and for the UP. And so with holding up his presentation, because I know he has a great one, I want to introduce Bob Jacquart.
Very good.
I was at a conference down at Crystal Mountain a couple of years ago, and as the last speaker of the two-day event came up, I looked at him and said, I'm going to fall asleep in the middle of this. And I promise that I won't, I'm trying really hard not to be the person that puts you to sleep today. And I really want to kind of excite you about entrepreneurialism, and is there someone hiding in your community? I think that's the theme that I have today. And I understand you all got red and black beer koozies. My battery went. I didn't realize I didn't plug in here. I'll get here. Just 1 second. I think that's great. I can work around this. Let's let it load here. I was in Zurich on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, pushing for Copper Peak to come back to life again at our big ski jump in Ironwood. And it was Friday, happened to be Platter Day. I don't know if anybody's aware of that, but it's the clothing dealer's celebration of wearing plaid, and I was able to give a bunch of international ski jumpers red and black beer cozies on Friday, and it was just as much fun as probably this one. We had Copper Peak written on the back, and it was really fun stuff. So, as my Dropbox is coming up here, it's loading somehow. It's just saying loading. I can get started. So, I'm going to tell you my story, and your goal is to tell me when someone in economic development in my community found me. When was I discovered as somebody that should get help or should get asked? That's the question, because we're hiding all over the place. And just to give you a little background of me, and all that we're missing in the beginning of this is pictures of me as a little kid, because I wanted that. It's very important. My dad started our business as my dad was a 24-hour fireman who worked shift from 7 a.m. to 7 a.m. And so he had a day off every other day. And he started sewing in our home, in the basement of our home, and he started making bank deposit bags. And so on one of the days off every week, we would get in his car and we would drive to the banks in Houghton and Calumet and Iron Mountain and Ashland and just the region, and he would go in, knock on a door, and try to sell bank bags. And we'd go in house, and my sister and I would be sitting in the back seat of the car. And one day he came out. My dad was in the Air Force, flew B-17s over Germany from England during World War II, and he had an Army wing. Or an Air Force ring. It was the Army Air Corps, I guess. And it was really cool, like a class ring, and it was silver and beautiful, and the Air Force insignia came out of it. And my father actually finished the entire, 4 years of the Catholic seminary, and took a year off. My sister and I are very grateful that he took a year off to decide whether he was going to be a priest or not. And he didn't take his vows. But my father was a very Christian man, and instead of replacing the Army Air Corps insignia on his ring, he put a sitting in the back seat of the car, and he's got his hands on the steering wheel. And he looked at my mother and said, I just lost that sale to a Jewish banker. And he noticed the crucifix on my ring, and I think I'm going to have to take this off if I want to make a sale. And I was in the back seat watching my father try to decide whether he should take down the ring to feed his family. It was a very interesting thing. And at the same time, about the same time, 1964, 1965, there was a yo-yo craze in the country. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but yo-yos were big. And my grandfather had a diamond store in Hurley, and he ran out of yo-yos, and there were no yo-yos to be found. But my other grandfather was a sort of surplus freight collector, and he bought stuff from surplus freights, and he had doorknobs that were knobs for dresser drawers. And I found them, and this is two of my grandfather out of a box. I went to my grandpa's warehouse and got two of these black things, and with a hacksaw cut 18 penny nails about 3/4 of an inch long, and put these two things in a vise with a nail in it, and squeezed them together with a string on it, and turned them into a yo-yo. This is one of the last ones left. I sold them for $1 a piece at my uncle's dime store, and I think there were 300. I only had enough for 350, but I was down there doing that. At the same time, both of my uncles had stores. One had a dime store and one had a grocery store. My grandfather was in the grocery business. I heard at the kitchen table as a kid a couple of great stories. One is when Kellogg's cornflakes put 14 ounces of cornflakes in a 16-ounce box. Same size box, but less weight. My grandfather thought it was the end of the world, that the deceit of the American public was starting. Now we call it 3-pound coffee can, whatever we call it. And at the same time, somebody from a company called Purina in 1935 went to my grandpa's grocery store. My grandfather told him he'd never make a living selling packaged dog food. And so my uncles always laughed at their dad about this. So keep that in mind. That was the basis of who I was as a kid. And my challenge is there are a bunch of those kids in our communities that live and breathe and think business because it's in their family. I sold yo-yos. I have this story, and I wear the ring, just so you know, only when I give speeches. So this kind of helps me to remember my father. So I have the ring on. And so this is who I am. But at the same time, I think about you guys trying to find these people in school while they're still in your schools and not let them leave your town. I employ 140 people in Ironwood, and we live in a community that has Hurley, Bessemer, Ironwood, and Wakefield in it. And I've always looked around and saying, just think if our community would have grabbed one of me from one of those 4 schools every year since I graduated from high school in 1970. We'd have a whole bunch of people working. And I'm not going anywhere. We'll never transfer out of the community, those kinds of things. And so, then I think about what kind of personality I was. I was very entrepreneurial in school, but I was also a very traditional student. So to the school system, I was good at math. I came to Tech to be a mechanical engineer on a full ride scholarship, and I was an athlete and all that stuff. So I was very traditional. I wasn't starting my own business as a kid, but there was a disconnect when I looked at a career of being a mechanical engineer from what I knew, what I grew up in, and what I breathed, and where I was. So I really think there's an opportunity. I don't have a solution, but I really think there's an opportunity to grab more of us and at least tell us that there's an opportunity to be in business, instead of going to get a degree where you're counselor. Counselors live in a really interesting world of trying to help you find a secure job, and entrepreneurialism is so scary to most traditional educators because they are on the routine of bargain wages and bargain retirement and structure, and they know everything about their lives, and to them it's almost impossible to understand what being an entrepreneur is. So now I got to really find my PowerPoint. Hang on a second here. Let's hope that's right here. Oh, it's still stuck. age I made yo-yos, and that's Little League was kind of a fun time for me. And now I'm in high school, and the counselors are telling me to go to tech because I'm a good math student. And nobody suggested that I be a businessman. Absolutely nobody. So after it not quite working at Michigan Tech, I came back to take a break in my life and started sewing. And absolutely, I'm still very fascinated by it. Sewing is one of the most intriguing businesses that you can be in to fabricate and design new things. If you want to crank it all the way up till now, I've been creating and doing and making things. I just submitted the next generation of insulation to the U.S. military. They're testing two 20 by 32 air beam tents in Afghanistan right now that I actually developed. So it's such a part of my life, but nobody saw that in me. So what I did was I became a craftsman and took over my dad's little business, learned how to make boat covers, was first mentored by the boat cover customers. Ironwood was just coming out of being a two-class town of miners and mine workers, and I lived in a mine house. My dad worked for the city. There were parties that in my day in high school I was not allowed to go to because I did not fall in the social economic structure that I was allowed to. I was told I was not allowed to go. So my impression of people with any success was very bad because they didn't let me do things in town. And all of a sudden I'm making boat covers for the president of Allstate Insurance in Manitowoc Waters, Wisconsin, and I'm really good at it. And that's all he cared about was getting his boat cover done nicely. And so Al McNichol, who's still a friend, I met him in 1974, I went back the second time, and I'm having coffee and cookies, and for the first time in my life, I'm with someone successful who is treating me like an equal, not a servant or a low-class person. And to him, I was getting the job done on time and doing a nice job. And so I was really, really, really lucky because Al told everybody, and you have no idea how many people live on the lakes in northern Wisconsin that we make boat covers for. It's the McGraw family that published all the school books, the man that sat with the Hiltons at the last Olympics, because he owns 88 Hampton Inns. There's just a wealth, and we've got it all wrong. But lucky for me, I was mentored by them. This is actually where I started, this little frozen window store. It was 25 by 62. I now have 2 lunch rooms that are bigger than the building that I started in. But this is where I started. And this is my oldest daughter, Gina, who actually is the driving force behind Strong & Cromer right now. So she also lived and grew up in a business background and went away for 12 years and came back to run Strong & Cromer because she lived and breathed the business as well. So I made boat covers and canvas and upholstery and things like that. And there's the business after I remodeled it. And Cheryl's friend Dennis is 53, and he came to work for me when he was 15. Wow. So he's been there. He's like my younger brother, and he's in that picture. Let's see. Back row, middle, next to the guy with the mustache and hat with the long hair. That's Dennis that Cheryl was talking about. I was making a boat cover for a guy up in Ashland, and he said, "You're very ambitious, and I like your energy. Would you like to do some production work?" And I said, "I'd love to do some production work, but I've never learned how to do it, and I'll figure it out." And so we started making those things, those lumbar rolls, and that's how I started learning production. And for the first time ever, I had somebody during these days, this is in the early 80s, I had somebody thank me for their nephew having a job with me. And then I realized that there's more to making canvas things and design things. So there's this employing people that's really cool. You can have an influence on people's lives and be good to them and have them be with you since they were 15 years old and things like that. My biggest break early in my career was finding these guys, Dr. Sposper and Smith. They were a tiny little pet supply company that was starting. And they were just a few million in sales. And they had a vision to sell dog products to women. And margins and money was in flea and tick powder and shampoos and vitamins and things like that. But that would look like a pharmaceutical supply catalog that wouldn't kill the women. So their idea was that they were going to have colorful, beautiful dog beds. And that was going to drive the catalog. That was going to make the newness of the catalog would be a pretty colored dog bed on the cover with a cute little dog laying inside of it. And they were so small at the time that none of the big dog bed manufacturers at the time wanted to deal with them. And they found me excited with my tail wagging, excited to work with them and work on anything new and learn how to make something new. But interesting enough, it was a great correlation to the fact that I had gone from book covers to upholstery. And being an upholsterer, now think about it, being a poor kid from Ironwood is one thing to meet Mr. McNichol, the president of Allstate Insurance. But Mrs. McNichol, the Mrs. President of Allstate Insurance, you're 26 years old and you got holes in your blue jeans, and you've got to sit down and color coordinate with her living room and flip through colors on a Tuesday night. And I was able to do that and understood it. And just so I could make the business grow, I started learning interior design and learned how to match navy blue and grays and all the colors that were popular then, and contrasting welding and all that stuff. Well, it was perfect background for making dog beds. And what happened was in the early 90s, dogs were coming from the backyard into the home. And we were becoming pet parents, is the term that we use in pet industries, pet parents. And so, daddy loves you and mommy loves you and all that stuff. And so dog beds needed to match interiors of homes. And so we hit this ride right now. Dr. Foster & Smith in February was purchased by Petco. And I found out last night that one of our products is going into Petco, and we're very excited about one of our big products is going to Petco. But Foster & Smith is about 40% of our sales right now. It's a big part of our lives. And my youngest daughter, KJ, who has been there ever since she graduated from college. She's our youngest, but she's been there longer than her sister Gina. She runs this division. And that's what we ended up at. That's our facility right now. If you look at the building on the right, you can kind of see a shadow halfway, a little past halfway toward the back. So if you take that lighter area in the front, both the left and right side, that was my biggest personal jump in life. That was the most scary thing I did in my entire business life, was going from the little store that I had and having people all over to taking out a loan, going into the Ironwood Industrial Park. Keep this in mind now. The question is, when did somebody finally notice me? Okay, so that's the question. So then I kept building and building and building, and that's what we have now. Of course, the fun story is the entrepreneurialism that helped bring Stormy Cromer into our lives. And one time I said, my life is I could talk for 3 hours, and I bet there would be a chance that you wouldn't get bored, because my life's been full of great stories. And the word that was used, and it's a real interesting word, I was lucky that Stormy Cromer came past me. But if somebody talks to me about it, if another businessman is looking at me and says, yeah, but you grabbed it. And the term is plucky. You saw luck going by and you grabbed at it. And I think that's a perfect explanation of who I am, because I found out later that at least 10 other people came behind me to try to buy Stormy Cromer. But I grabbed it quickly enough and everything. So I'll tell you the story because it's fun and you can kind of relate to how do you make this happen. So how does Stormy Cromer working in the UP? So I was at a coffee shop, the local dealer called in an order for Stormy Cromer caps. Some of you know the story first, but some of you don't. He came to me and said, I just called in an order for Cromer caps and they don't make them anymore. You better do something about it. And I said, get me the number. My knee-jerk reaction was, get me the number, I'll buy the damn company. That's exactly what I said to him. So I was out on my factory floor that afternoon, and I came back to my office, and on my chair was a slip of paper that said, Cromer Cap Company, here's the number. So I called the guy, and he said, this will never grow. I just want you to know that 80% of the sales are within a 20-mile radius of where you're sitting in Ironwood, Michigan. Now, I had no idea. I just thought everybody wore a hat, and the 3 biggest dealers were, 2 were in Ironwood and 1 was in Bessemer. So I went down there and bought the company, brought it back, really didn't have a clue what it was. They made 1 hat, 2 colors. That hat, this hat. They didn't even, I grabbed this one last night, but this is the hat that we bought. Except they made it, at the time they made it in black and red. So I bought the rights to make this hat. That's how it all started. And that's what the catalog was. They made those welders and pipe fitters hats alongside of that, and down in the bottom corner of that were the two hats that they make. And so there's the picture. But what I didn't know was this company had a man named Stormy Cromer that invented it, and a wife named Hancock. And there he is in his railroad engineer, and there he is in his baseball uniform. And we have local people these are local photos. This is my grandpa's grocery store in 1938. And my grandpa's grocery store ran out of milk because Ironwood got 54 inches of snow the day before this picture was taken. And grandpa's grocery store ran out of milk, and my dad's two cousins and a friend walked to the Olson Creamery to get with that toboggan that's under there and got milk. That's my grandfather, my other grandfather, 1942. Then we started seeing these things happen. Top of Mount Kilimanjaro, a young man wants to get married in Cromer caps. And of course, our famous 10-minute-old Charlie. Charlie is still in the receiving room, 10 minutes old, 5 generations of hat wearers. Okay? So, I really didn't know what I had. The original plan was as many hats as they make in a year. I will do that any time of the year because they don't take up much room. And if you're out of work, making dogheads or something, I'll have these hats to make in March or April or whatever. But I realized one thing, and one of the things about not having a college education is your life is continually trying to catch the people that do. And that's another part of my story. I'm very open to saying that I don't know what I don't know, and so I went back down to Milwaukee, where I bought the company from, and interviewed marketing people, and said, okay, I got a picture of Stormy Cromer, Grandpa with the fish, and a hat. And I'll never forget the creative director that I ended up hiring, said, you don't have a clue what you've got here. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, if we made this hat today, would we have a 1942 picture of our grandfather Roy Wendell? Would we have a picture of a man named Stormy Cromer that invented it or patented it? I said, no, I guess not. So I listened really intently, and the three things, the bits of advice he gave me was, the Cromer cap patent was filed in 1925, even though it started in 1903. They filed it in 25, and it had a 17-year life, which means the patent ran out in 1942. Okay, so I've got no patent protection, but I have trademark protection. And the hat at the time did not have any markings on the outside. So their suggestion was, get a Nike swoosh on the outside of this product so that you could brand this thing through trademarking, not through patent protection. I had no clue that that was a possibility, but if you look, we put the signature on everything now. Even the back of my vest that I'm wearing, we've got a signature. And then the story of how George and Ida created this hat is inside of most of the hats that we make right now. Originally, that was what we did.
What year?
Oops, I just touched the wrong button. 2001, I bought the company, and who asked the question? I'm sorry. Okay, sorry. 2001, I bought the company. And then what happened was, part of my fun story, I should have a little more build up to that, but imagine you guys are from small towns, especially people in the UP. The marketing company said, I think the Milwaukee Journal would love to write an article about you. And that was very intimidating to me. I'm thinking, man, the Milwaukee Journal want to write an article about me. I went back down a month later, the marketing company set it up, we went to the conference room, the lady walked in 5 minutes late, it was 5 after 1, she looked at her watch, and she looked at her watch and she said, I've got 55 minutes. And I honestly said to myself, Bob, what the hell are you doing here? And you could tell she didn't want to be there, she's got to be out of here by 2 o'clock. And at 20 to 4, she's hugging me, thanking me for the opportunity to write this delightful story, and that she wants to get her editor to get her 2 days up to come up to Ironwood and take pictures of people who use board hats and have fun with it. So I landed in the Wausau airport on a Sunday, about 3 weeks later, and did this as a man was walking across the airport carrying the Milwaukee Journal with me on the front cover of the Sunday Milwaukee Journal. Now, to put this in perspective, this is PR for those of you that are I did not pay for this. And just to give you an idea of what this did for me in my mind and where we can take something from it, this was the launch. I bought a 98-year-old company and I knew what their record year was. Okay, how many hats they made here. And so that was my goal, to just keep going with that many hats. This article sold 3 times that many hats in 2 months. We now make that many hats, the best year ever, for 98 years, we now make that many hats every 4 days. So to give you an idea of what we've done, and all in Little Ironwood, and all with kind of having fun and doing cool things and stuff. So we started out, went to Cabela's. Everybody told me that Cabela's, it would take 3 to 5 years to get them to put you in, and if they liked you, they would knock you off in 2 years. Because they sold, Cabela's makes their own clothes and everything like that. I got in the first year, and we've been there ever since. I was at an autographing session out at Freeport, Maine last weekend, 2 weekends ago. The weekend before Zurich, I was in Freeport, Maine, autographing hats for the LL Bean customers, because our brand is strong enough to be inside of their brand and not have them ever knock off it. It blows my mind that we've been able to position it that way. One of the fun stories was about the reason that Stormy Cromer's successful, that it came back to where most of the sales were. I always say that if Cromer would have been purchased by a Miami company, it wouldn't be having as much fun or doing exactly what they're doing with it. Gina and Terry, my daughters, and maybe Cheryl, wore black Stormy Cromer hats as a kid skiing. And did you do that? Collect pins, and they collected pins on them. Well, they were buying a man's hat with a great big brim, and of course, it was usually the junior high kids. Well, a 7th grade girl can pull off just about anything. They can look cute and adorable in anything. So if the hat's too big and the brim's too wide for their face, it still looks cute on them, right? Well, I remembered that. I bought a roll of pink fabric, made the brim smaller. That was all because I had this history. And so that was one of the first things we did, is start finding ladies' hats. And of course, ladies' hats are a bigger part of than men's hats right now. And then we started having people come in and saying, as soon as my son or grandson is old enough, I'm going to get him his first hat when he's like in 1st grade. And of course, we started making baby hats, and now we cannot believe how many baby hats. Because grandma and grandpa want to get their new grandchild their first Cromer with a little baby hat. Well, that's all evolved around the fact that it came back to where we were. One of the things that happened to us was Cromer, when I first bought it, was over on the side shelf with the other hats, buried in with the mittens and hats and everything like that. And we started getting feedback, and our reps that were selling them said, Cromer needs to make a bigger footprint at the store. We want a Cromer rack someday. Well, we weren't making enough hats then. We just added colors at first, and then the ladies' hats. So we started making coats and shirts and pants. I ran out of, at about 100 employees, I ran out of ability and common sense to run the factory. So no matter how much I loved that place, and how much I loved people, and how much creativity I had, and how much ambition I had, I was really struggling with everything, in fact, in running the factory. And there's something about a sewing factory that you need the time to be fast, you need them to make the product on time. Julie will know this for sure. There's a fine line between respecting them as a human being and getting them done quickly. And I don't have the personality to be a slave driver, so I went looking, and I'll imagine putting an ad in the Wall Street Journal saying, I'm looking for Jacquart Fiber Products, Ironwood, Michigan is looking for an experienced sewing factory manager in the United States who's looking for a job to come to Ironwood, Michigan. That just didn't happen. So we went to Venezuela and got Freddie Pina. And Freddie is an amazing, wonderful man who's worked in 53 countries in the world and finally settled down in Ironwood. And he's got an international, I'm going to talk about him for an hour, but he's married to the former runner-up to Miss Dominican Republic, who is this little tiny beauty queen, and when he's making it work. This is how he's making it work. He's on a plane to Miami right now today. 1 week a month in Miami with Neil and his children, and 3 weeks with me. And he's making it work, and he's one of the angels that God dropped in my life. Gina came back, I told you about that, so she took over. For fathers that have daughters in the room, I'll tell you that she came back weekend to visit, and her husband stayed in Dallas, and her mother was sleeping, so we were one-on-one in the cabin, and she looked at me and said, "Dad, you're not ready for this, but I want to come back to the community and work with you and continue your legacy of employing people in Ironwood." And so Gina came back and worked with us. So we started with an outdoor look on the left, and we started going urban, and we started doing things like this, getting models. Cover changed. That's one of our older covers, our newer one. Have a great Facebook presence. Dealers went from that to that. International. Brought in the sales manager. Stormy Cromer has enough lure to it that we were able to capture. Our last 3 interviews for sales managers were Columbia bought out Sorrel Boots, so Sorrel Boots sales manager was looking for a job. The number 2 marketing sales manager at Dickies, and the guy that made UGG Boots famous. Those were the 3 people that were the last 3 interviews, and Joel's the guy that made UGG Boots famous. Joel took UGG Boots from $1 million to $35 million, and then they got bought out by Decker. We do factory tours. We make all kinds of fun colored hats, and we have a whole world of the future. Tomorrow in New York, Wolverine Boots will be announcing a partnership with Stormy Cromer, and you're the first people to see this. If you look on the bottom, it says Wolverine and Stormy Cromer on the bottom, and it says the same on the tongue. They're behind on production, so there aren't any boots from, and of course these aren't my size. Our catalog, we did another market survey, and our catalog went from a hunting and fishing catalog like you saw back there to a little more polished looking. This was all from direction from marketing companies, so this is this year's, what's being sold this year at the stores. This is a wholesale catalog. This is a catalog that the surplus outlet would get here and buy from. One of the problems with Stormy Cromer is that all the sales are in the winter, so that became another problem. And so we're trying a summer line next year. So this is the summer catalog we're making, and lots of products. We're selling next summer stuff right now, so there's all kinds of fun things. You can come up here and look at it, but there's fun hats like this. This is all Stormy Cromer stuff. And what's going on hot right now is we did a program with Harris Tweed. These hats have been just really fun and cool, and this is all, Harris Tweed is made in England in people's basements. I don't know if you know that or not, but it's a real cool tradition. They have the looms right in the basements, and wool is brought to their homes. And when I tell an uneducated guy, I would say this is the Sherlock Holmes material. And another thing that's been real successful is we've been able to pull off making a hat that doesn't look like a Stormy Cromer hat, because our brand is getting strong enough now to do that. And so we're just excited. We can't stop thinking about it and growing it and everything like that. So Gina's doing Stormy Cromer, Carrie's doing the dog beds, and I'm still being very much an entrepreneur. There's a whole bunch of things going on in my world that I don't have enough time to talk about. But I just want you to know that my life has been absolutely the most fulfilling career that anybody could imagine, and I don't, half of my friends are retired now, and there's not even a chance that I would be part of any thought of going away and stopping all this fun. So not only is a career like mine beneficial to a community, it's also just a very, very rewarding community. In fact, we give tours every week, every day of every week, and once a week I try to give a tour, and I gave 12 people a tour last week, and the guy said, I would just give anything to enjoy my work as much as you do. So I'm just very, very fortunate. And that's sort of the story. I'm going to sit and have lunch. I'm going to sort of leave it where we are now. And certainly there's questions and answers, but if anybody wants to take a stab at it, when did economic development people find me? Because I didn't even know you guys existed, just so you know. I never asked for help. OPM, other people's money, was not something that was part of my day. It was just self-sustaining and growing and taking what you earned last year and trying not to spend too much at home and use the rest of it to buy a sewing machine. That's kind of how it works around here in the UP. And so think there's opportunities for all of us to find those people and in our communities. And Ernesto Ceroli gave a speech in Marquette about 10 years ago, and I actually spoke before him. He's an expert on rural entrepreneurialism. And he said the best thing your community can have is a gray-haired or no-haired man or woman who's been in business all their life, and if you're lucky, they've gone bankrupt twice. And he's your economic development helper. Because it's really hard to understand what we go through when you don't do it. So if you're in that business and you work for the state or something like that, it'd be really great if you could find somebody like me in the community. I help a lot. I've got 2 kids right now that I'm mentoring, but find somebody like me that really gets it to go in with you. I think that's a big help to break that barrier. So I know my time's up. So does anybody have any questions or whatever?
When did they discover you?
When you want to expand the building.
When I went to the building, yeah. And I just it's like all of a sudden I was popular. I got put on the bank board, which honestly which was credibility, and I went from, and you know, the Cahotas Pioli family, they were up here, right, too. There was a Pioli up here, right, too. Taking Louis Pioli's spot at the bank was such an honor for me, because Louis Pioli was such a wonderful man. And I remember sitting on that chair downstairs of it's the Wells Fargo Bank in Ireland. I remember sitting in that chair thinking, holy mackerel, I'm sitting in Louis Pioli's chair. So, but that was it. It took that much for them to just kind of awake to me. But I was the same person a week before or whatever, and 2, 3, 4. So, good.